Today we are upgrading the RV bathroom with a modification that's easy to do. It's fun to build, it's functional. If I can do it, anyone can do it. This is our Venture Sport Trek Touring 272 VRK. There's a ridiculous amount of storage in this RV. However, we wanted a little more storage within the bathroom. Now my neighbor has a pretty impressive wood shop that he allows me to use, but I'm not gonna use that for this modification. Instead, I wanna build something with tools that most of you probably already have, and I wanna build something that's not intimidating for you guys to try out yourself. So we're not using any table saws, planers, or routers. I'm just going to be using a jigsaw. Now you can substitute this with a circular saw. This needs a new blade, so I'm going to go with the jigsaw for today. We're also using a pneumatic 2-in-1 nail/staple gun. Honestly, everything we're going to assemble today can be done with screws. However, staples are just cleaner and quicker. In the gun, we'll be using 1-inch narrow crown staples. I'm using 1-inch staples because we will be connecting 3/4-inch pieces of wood. 1-inch staples will not poke through 2 pieces of 3/4-inch wood, which means we can fasten everything from the back and not have to do any cleanup on the visible surfaces. And you don't need to write all this down. I'm going to put links to everything in this video down below. Okay, this is our bathroom. It's not a large bathroom, but we don't spend a lot of time in here, but storage is a little limited. The area right next to the sink is our target for today. We enter and exit the shower from the right. There's also a cover over the kitchen sink plumbing lines in here. There is really no scenario where anyone will be standing on the left side of the shower, so this is a perfect area to utilize for storage. First things first, I'm gonna remove this cover and hit the gaps with some spray foam. Spray foam is your friend in an RV. Filling all these gaps in areas where plumbing and electrical comes through the floors will help keep cold air in during the summer. It can also help with critters. Once those gaps are filled, we can begin building our storage cabinet. This is just a quick diagram I made for the front, but I'm not going to confuse you with my chicken scratch. If you get a little confused on how we're cutting and constructing all this stuff, please just stick around, because as we start assembling this, I promise you everything is going to make sense and you're going to see how easy this is to build. The front face will consist of 2.5-inch by 3/4-inch pine strips on the side. Pine's always been my go-to for RV mods because it's both strong and lightweight. I also left a 1/2-inch gap below the bottom of the sink countertop for the top of this cabinet we're building today, and we'll circle back to this later. For the middle, I used a piece of plywood I had left over from another project. Just remember, if you are covering something like I am today, make this middle piece about 2 inches higher than what you plan to cover. The highest part of these pipes is about 6 inches from the floor, so I made my middle piece 8 inches tall. To connect these 3 pieces together, I just ripped a piece of the 2.5-inch pine, added some wood glue, and placed that support on the rear across all 3 pieces. I then ran a couple of staples through to lock everything into place. Yes, for those of you paying attention, you will notice I already forgot to go through the back, so I'll have to putty over these staples later. I did remember after joining these pieces that I should be going through the back, so we're going to go through the back for the rest of the modification. I then cut another front piece of 2.5-inch pine and mounted it 18 inches up from the floor for the front of the second higher shelf. Just like the bottom piece, we're going to connect a piece of ripped wood on the back of all 3 pieces to secure everything into place. This piece is not only going to secure everything together, it's also going to act as an upper shelf support. So I mounted this support 1.5 inches down so there is a lip in front of the shelf. I then added a third cross-section support 1.5 inches down from here for the bottom shelf. So to make things easy, let me show you what everything looks like from the back. We have our 2 pine strips and the middle piece that spans the width of our available space in the bathroom. I'll label these sides number 1 and number 2 and the middle piece as number 3. There's also another piece of 2.5-inch pine higher up that will be the front of the upper shelf. We will call this piece number 4. We have 3 pieces of cross sections connecting all of this together. The bottom cross section sits flush with the floor. The second cross section is 1.5 inches down from the top of the number 3 piece, and the third cross section is 1.5 inches down from the top of the number 4 piece. You'll also notice I did not go all the way across with these support pieces. The reason I did that was because you may have to turn this entire front assembly into the location. So bringing these supports all the way out may make that process a little bit difficult. For cutting purposes, just leave these cross sections about 1 inch short on each side. And once you're done assembling this front piece, you can put your wood glue away. You're not going to use it for the rest of the project. Next, we just need to measure how far up the top 2 cross members are from the floor. Our bottom is 6.5 inches, our top is 16.5 inches. Once you know those measurements, mark that height on the wall. We're going to rip another piece of wood into two and create the rear supports for our shelves. I pre-drilled 5 holes for the screws, and I did countersink these holes. I just prefer the way it looks, but you don't have to countersink these holes if you don't want to. Okay, now we are at the point where everything is going to start making a lot of sense. For the last 5 years, I've been able to keep all of our videos free for everyone to watch. I refuse to charge a membership fee on this channel, and I want to keep it that way. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, RVMattress.com. They have a nice selection of mattresses for all budgets, and they have the oddball RV sizes you won't find in a residential mattress store. You'll find the RV bunk, 3 different king sizes, and the short queen, among others. They also have a full line of pillows and bedding accessories. Their website will recommend a mattress based on how you sleep. Shipping is free, and they come with a limited lifetime warranty. You have 120 nights to try out your mattress, and honestly, we slept so well in the RV that we got one for our house. Use our link and discount code down below and receive 30% off your mattress. Position your rear supports to the line on the wall and mount them to the wall. I'm using 1-inch screws, but what's really important is that you don't use a screw that will penetrate the outside wall of the RV. Also, interior RV walls are very thin. Once the screws penetrate the interior wall and they start locking up a little bit, don't continue to wrench down on these. Just hand tighten them so they don't strip. With our back supports in, position the front piece so it's square to the wall and everything's lined up where you want it to finally rest. Now you can measure, cut, and drop in your shelves. The bottom shelf depth will measure from the wall to the back of the front face, and the width will be the same width as the total front face. The upper shelf will be the same depth as the bottom shelf, but the width will be a little bit shorter. If you're using 1/2-inch wood, make the top shelf a 1/2 inch shorter. If you're using 3/4 inch wood, make the top shelf 3/4 of an inch shorter. The reason I'm doing this is because I also need to cut a side for this cabinet. This side piece will simply slide down in. Because the upper shelf is shorter, it will pass the upper shelf and rest on the bottom shelf. Once your 2 shelves and side piece are dropped in, square everything up and drop some screws through the shelves into the supports underneath. I chose 2 screws in the back and 2 in the front. As I mentioned earlier, you don't have to countersink the screws for the supports on the wall, but you probably should countersink these shelf screws so whatever you put on these shelves doesn't get caught on the screws. I also angled a screw through the shelves into the side piece so that is held in place. Full disclaimer, I did apply and wet sand some filler to this bottom piece. I had to do this because I was cheap and decided to use plywood I had laying around, but if I were to do this again, I would use something that was smooth or planed. We are now going to remove one of our cabinet doors and head over to the paint store to match the color and finish. And remember, this is in the bathroom, so you should get a paint that is moisture and mildew resistant. I'm not gonna bore you with 2 hours of painting footage, but I will say this. Keep in mind what's going to be visible once everything is installed and make sure it gets painted. If in doubt, just paint every surface, front, back, sides, everything. You'll still have easily a 1/2 quart left if you do that. So as I'm sitting here editing this video, I realize I should probably just say to paint all the wood. That way everything has mildew protection. Okay, so let's get back to the video. Okay, the paint is dry. Now to the fun part. Let's get everything assembled so I can show you how nice this looks. Let's start with the wall supports. I did not remove and paint the bottom support because that won't be visible, but the upper support will be visible if you find yourself laying on the bathroom floor looking up. Some of you may unfortunately be in that position at some point in time, so let's go ahead and get this upper support in. Next, we can slide our front face in and get everything square. After that, let's drop in the bottom shelf and for the last time, get the screws installed through the shelves into the supports. Once the bottom shelf is tight, go ahead and drop in your upper shelf, but don't install the screws yet. Instead, also drop in your side piece, which will be a little bit easier to do if everything on this side is still a little loose. Once the side is dropped down and resting on the bottom shelf, you can insert the 4 screws through the upper shelf into the supports, as well as the screws that angle into the side piece. Okay, everything is together. We are not perfectly square, but not too bad considering I used a jigsaw and nothing that a little drawer liner won't hide anyway. So you might be asking, why not just staple this whole thing together outside and install in the bathroom as one piece? The reason is simple, I can't. There's a lip on the front of the factory installed cabinet that I wanted to overlap the cabinet we're building. Plus, the factory countertop overhangs this cabinet, so it can't be slid in or slid down. There's just no physical way to get this in place as one piece. But that's a good thing because it can be removed without being destroyed. Hopefully I'll never have to remove this, but it's nice knowing I can. Okay, on to the top shelf. Spoiler alert, we are also doing a dinette renovation in this RV. The dinette table is the same material as the bathroom countertop, so Tara came up with a genius idea to cut a piece off the dinette table. Alright guys, here's where I screwed up. I did not take the direction of the grain into account when cutting this piece. This looks like so I'm going to cut another piece so the grain direction matches. Once the top is slid into place, I pre-drilled and added a screw into the overhanging factory countertop in the back, and I made some 90-degree brackets from slotted flat bar to connect the top to the front face, both of which are out of view. Because we're right next to the sink, I thought it would be wise to run a sealer along the edges. I'm using GeoCell ProFlex RV in clear. It's the only sealer I use on my RVs, both inside and out. Now, I don't have the gift of laying a perfect bead, so I'm taping the area off, dropping some sealant, and then smoothing it out with my finger. Pro tip, if you have foaming window cleaner, spray a little of that on your fingertip and it will make for a nice, smooth, and even seal. Before I show you the finished project, if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like, and if you want to see more upgrades, modifications, and renovations, we hope you consider subscribing. Okay, let's add some drawer liners to cover up the screw holes in the shelves, and let's step back and take a look at the finished product. Links to everything used in this video are down in the video description. There's coupon codes to save you money down there as well. Thank you for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.